Welcome in to It's Always Sunny in Chiefs Kingdom. I'm Austin. Find me on Twitter, not usually, at Real Bird Lawyer, bird law expert on Blue Sky, which is where I've been spending most of my social media time lately. Here with me, as always, this is my script. It's been a minute, but my co-host Taylor at Taylor_Witten on Twitter, IASIC on Blue Sky. What's going on, bud?
We're back, and we have to talk about at least a little bit of why it's been a couple months since we've been on. We did every week other than a couple short breaks from February of 2020 until February of 2025. We had a great 5-year run where it was nothing but laughs and sunshine and good times. And then I went to the Super Bowl in person, and everyone here knows how that went. So I didn't really feel like talking about the Chiefs for a little bit. And
Yeah.
so, that's we're back because the draft, obviously. We're not going to be back weekly yet, but we do have plans on continuing the show back in its old format here at some point in the future.
Yeah, this is kind of going to be like a little bit of a one-off for now, and then we will get back into the swing of things eventually. You have to rally, and you have to get back on the horse, and we're not giving up on the Chiefs. It just it was tough. Some of you know from following me on social media that we've had some health problems in my family, and I mean, got to be honest with you, this has just been a terrible year overall.
Terrible.
Like, I mean, just literally nothing good has happened pretty much since the AFC Championship game in any way at all. Had grandparents die and health issues, and politics of this country are a disaster. We won't get into that, but man, it's just it's tough out there. And then inevitably, when your life is not going well, you really dump a lot of your hopes and dreams into your favorite sports team that's playing in its third consecutive Super Bowl. And in your case, dump a significant portion of your bank account into going to see your favorite sports team play in person. And then when that goes extremely badly, boy, that's why we haven't podcasted in 2.5 months. It's why, with two exceptions, I haven't been on Twitter at all. I deleted the app from my phone the night of the Super Bowl because I just simply did not want to associate with it. And listen, there will probably be some people, probably not too many people, because most of the people understand where we're coming from here. There will be some people listening to this podcast that will, think that's soft. That's, whatever it is, whatever boomer take you have about your mental health, fuck all that. Like, if something makes you upset, I mean, I'm not saying bury your head in the sand. There are real problems that you have to engage with, but sports is entertainment, and entertainment should not make your mental health worse.
It should be optional.
So, exactly. And so for us, it has been optional, and now we are choosing to return to it. And I last night, or I guess on Thursday night, was the first time that I tweeted on Blue Sky about sports in probably since the night of the Super Bowl, and it felt a little bit weird.
Sure.
It hasn't quite sunk in yet that we're back, that we are on the air, but we're going to talk about the Chiefs 2025 draft. We're going to have some fun with it. You may have intuited already that we didn't grind a lot of tape on these guys. We weren't super plugged into the pre-draft process, but our favorite sports team is back. They have selected a number of players in the NFL draft. Those players are going to be suiting up for the Kansas City Chiefs in September, and we are going to be there watching every second of the team again when they kick off in week 1 of 2025. So let's get into it. News is there was a draft. We're recording this on Saturday night, so the undrafted free agent signings are continuing to matriculate in, but all of the Chiefs draft picks are in the books. The Chiefs have made their selections, and we're just going to go through them pick by pick. So obviously, the 32nd pick in the NFL draft belonged to the Philadelphia Eagles, the victors in Super Bowl 59, and the Chiefs had pick number 31. But Howie Roseman, just getting high off his own farts, I guess, was like, hey, I'm gonna do a trade. I don't want to pick 32nd, even though my team just won the Super Bowl. I'd rather pick in the Super Bowl loser spot. And he called up Brett Veach and he said, do you want pick number 164 for free? And the Chiefs said, hell yeah, we'll take pick number 164 for free. We'll move down to 32 into the Super Bowl winner spot. And of course, the Eagles moved up and picked a falling player, what Howie loves to do, a falling player with, some questionable off-field material or health or whatever, and
Sure.
scooped him up. And the Chiefs found themselves picking in the 32nd spot, and they selected Josh Simmons, offensive tackle out of Ohio State. He was number 21 on Arif Hasan's consensus board. You'll hear me refer to that quite a bit. Arif Hasan, football writer at Wide Left, and does great work compiling all the different rankings. Obviously, there's a lot of different boards out there, and so getting a consensus board is really a good in boards obviously are not compiled by NFL teams. Every NFL team has a different board, but 21st on Arif Hasan's consensus board, and Chiefs got their man Simmons at number 32.
Pretty good. And KCSN, of course, will also be quoting them quite a bit in this, as well as Math Bomb's relative athletic score. Those are our Bibles for the draft.
I have Dane Brugler as well.
Dane Brugler, of course, yes, the beast, the guide there. So we rely heavily on the experts. We are not the experts in draft grades or in grinding college tape or anything like that. We spend our time in the NFL, watching NFL games and NFL snaps and all that stuff. So KCSN had Josh Simmons at OT3, offensive tackle number 3. Clearly was a big target. We saw Simmons drafted or mocked all over the place for the Chiefs. A lot of people thought, tackle was a big need, especially after how the game that will not be mentioned anymore went. Getting a guy that he had the patella issues last year. He didn't do any of the combine stuff and any of that because he's been hurt. But he is, a lot of people are really, really high on his ceiling. And to get a guy like that, a left tackle for the future at pick 32, the Chiefs have tried the whole don't invest a lot in the offense in the left tackle thing since Eric Fisher, and it hasn't really worked. It's been okay. Donovan Smith was probably the best that they've done at left tackle in that time, but he was even just okay. But it was obviously a big time struggle last year.
I mean, they traded a first round pick for Orlando Brown. They've tried.
Yeah.
They've
forgot
tried
about that because he was so terrible. But.
Sure. I mean, he was fine. They've had a lot of fine, and last year the fine was bad, and they had to move Joe Tooney to get back to fine, and then that obviously took an All-Pro left guard out of his spot, and ended up kind of playing out like a repeat. Yeah, kind of ended up playing out like a repeat of the Tampa Super Bowl when they were playing with a completely reshuffled offensive line. It's not surprising they took an offensive lineman here. Simmons was the OT3 for Dane Brugler as well, so kind of right around in there. This was a somewhat thinner tackle class at the top. In those really good deep tackle classes, you would never see someone kind of mocked around OT3 fall probably to the end of the first round.
Right.
But he does obviously have some health concerns. You mentioned the knee injury, and he also, he played his first 2 seasons at San Diego State and then transferred over to Ohio State and moved from right tackle to left tackle. So this is somebody that's played both tackle positions. Really the Chiefs, you could say both tackle spots have really been positions of need.
Certainly.
Since Fisher and Schwartz were both healthy and doing their thing en route to the Chiefs' first Super Bowl victory, now 6 years ago. So whether it's going to be on the left side or the right side, we'll see. The Chiefs made a significant investment at tackle, not a first round pick, but Kingsley Suamataia last year. And he was a guy that, was mocked as an option or seen as a potential option for the Chiefs at 32 last year. And we obviously did not see very much of Kingsley in the 2024 season. And what we did see was not very good. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this battle kind of plays out. And obviously, they still have, tackles under contract. They signed a new tackle in free agency.
Jalen Moore.
Exactly. They still have their right tackle. So they've got a lot of tackle options. It's just going to be interesting to see how these all play out and who's going to end up where, because you have Kingsley Suamataia, who's played in both spots, or at least has gotten reps in both spots.
Yeah.
You've got Josh Simmons, who's done that. And you've got a couple of, frankly, pretty well-paid potential free agent options. And, obviously, Joe Tooney's no longer on the team. So you've got a guard opening as well.
It kind of feels like the plan, or at least what it looks like, is Kingsley at left guard. Um, Certainly, that's one of the options right now. And if that's the case, between Jawan Taylor and Jalen Moore, you at least have two healthy tackles.
Right.
Considering Josh Simmons is probably not, I don't know. It's been mixed bag about his immediate availability. The medicals were said to have all clear for Josh Simmons, and on draft night, Veach said that, they expect him to be able to participate in camp. I don't know if participation is full go or if that's
Right.
just, what the story is. But point being, if Simmons is not physically just healthy enough to start right away, I mean, you envision the line as being, something like Jalen Moore, Kingsley Suamataia, of course, Creed and Trey, and then Juwan Taylor for now. And then if Simmons then becomes available and healthy and pushes for the starting left tackle spot, which you would think a first round pick, if he's available, that's where he would go. Then maybe it's all about Jalen Moore kicking over to right tackle and taking Juwan Taylor's job, which we've all
Right.
talked about how frustrating that position has been for the Chiefs. And so I don't know. I would rather have more offensive linemen than less, and I would rather have guys with high ceilings. I think given the board and given what the Chiefs needed and given Josh Simmons' ceiling, which, before the injury, he was smashing for Ohio State in the six
Right.
games he played. He had one
He's
even
strong
hurry.
contender for OT1, Dane
Yes,
says.
yes. I mean, he was a top 10 pick in the draft before the injury, and so yeah, sure, an injury pushes him down a couple spots to where the Chiefs can snag him, but the injuries don't last forever, and if they can get him to bounce back here, slam dunk pick for me. And I'll just quickly read the KCSN how he fits brief, which I love when they specifically talk about the Chiefs with all these players. So they said the Chiefs desperately need an offensive tackle in this class, and Simmons could be an interesting option if he falls due to his knee injury, which of course he did. The biggest advantage that Simmons would bring to the Chiefs is his ability to keep the pocket wide and away from the quarterback, which I love to hear. Simply adding a player like Simmons would give the Chiefs a guy that is capable of creating space for Mahomes to create in the backfield. So, obviously, athletically, he's a great fit here, and I'd love to see it work out. I think the Chiefs need to hit a homer on a first round pick. There have been some ups and downs in the high rounds lately with the Chiefs. Had great success, of course, with McDuffie and Karlaftis. Worthy, I would say, is turning into a slam dunk for sure. He was a little slow to get going, but turned out great. But you've had the Clyde experiments and a lot of interesting high draft picks for the Chiefs. So hopefully this one is a good one.
So pretty good value for the Chiefs on day one. A guy that was seen as sort of around the 20th best player in the draft and would have been even higher than that if not for the injury, and they get him at 32 overall. Now we move into day two, so the second and third round, and this one was a little bit more of a mixed bag from a value standpoint or consensus standpoint. With the 31st pick in the second round, which would be 63rd overall, the Chiefs take defensive tackle Omar Norman Lott out of Tennessee. KCSN had him as the 16th best interior defensive lineman, and he was 88th on Arif Hasan's consensus board, and the Chiefs took him 63rd. So on paper, that is a 25 pick reach, and Dane had him as the defensive tackle 15. So very, very similarly to where KCSN had him, and didn't have him ranked as top 100 players overall. So this is an interesting player. We didn't mention relative athletic score, which obviously takes all the testing at each position and puts it into a percentile rank for Josh Simmons, because Josh Simmons didn't test. We had his height, weight, bench, but not any athletic testing beyond that because he was recovering from the injury. Omar Norman Lott is the first Chiefs draft pick for which we have an RAS score, and it's not great. 5.95, which means he's a 59th percentile athlete at the defensive tackle position. It's an interesting profile because we have a composite size grade, which is poor, barely over 6 foot, which for a DT puts him in the 36th percentile, and 291 pounds, which seems massive. It is massive for a human being, but for a DT, that is in the 37th percentile for weight. And then you have your composite speed grade. Now, speed is not necessarily incredibly important. We would typically say that speed has everything to do with it. For a DT, I mean, it's not as important, but his composite speed grade is only okay. His 40-yard dash was 53rd percentile, but his 20-yard and his 10-yard split were down in the 40s. But there's one other category, two other categories: agility, for which he did not test, and then explosion. And explosion is vertical and broad jump. That is really important for defensive tackles, and that is great for this player, Omar Norman-Lott. Vertical was 31.5, which for a 300-pound defensive tackle, that ranks in the 85th percentile. And his broad jump, 9.5, is even better, almost 92nd percentile, 91.7% percentile ranking for him. So a smaller guy, an explosive guy, an interesting fit for the Chiefs, and an interesting pick with their second-round draft pick in 2025.
Yeah, definitely. The Chiefs know that Chris Jones is aging. He's still good, obviously. I mean, elite, but he's not a guy that's going to be around forever. And so with all of the departures in free agency that the Chiefs had on the defensive line, especially defensive tackles, you're pretty much looking at Chris Jones in that room right now. And so getting Norman-Lott, he was, even though it was the end of the second round, he was the 9th defensive tackle taken. So certainly the position had been a little picked over by the time the Chiefs got to the end of the second round, but they knew they needed some help there. They needed some guys. So even if you're going to reach at that point, reach for a position of need is better than just not picking up any depth at defensive tackle because there wasn't any good value. You want to make sure that you spend, some early draft capital on that. So I didn't mind that just from a purely positional standpoint. From the KCSN how he fits, Kansas City has not made a heavy investment into smaller interior defensive linemen, which you could say that, Chris Jones is obviously the exact opposite of that. So people will point to Turk Wharton, but he was an undrafted free agent that happened to blossom into a major contributor. If they want to go back to that type of player, Norman-Lott does make sense. He brings juice as a pass rusher that can be moved around and be a difficult matchup for slower-footed offensive linemen. That makes sense. He can be a change-up pitch for the defense. Ultimately, if the Chiefs pass, it's likely because of the questions surrounding his run defense. The Chiefs and run defense have been an interesting story over the years because if you're running against the Chiefs, for the most part, if you're, fans like you and I want opponents to be running the ball on the Chiefs because running the ball is a waste of time. And I don't really mind if the Chiefs can't stop the run as much if they've got, good pass rush and good pass defense.
I hate that we have to have this conversation, by the way, in against the backdrop of what happened 3 months ago, because
there was much more going on.
I know. I understand that. I understand. I completely understand that. However, I don't like it.
I know. I get it. And look, ideally, you want your team to be elite at stopping everything, right? Ideally, you want to stop the pass, stop the run, stop everything that moves, everything that lives. But that's just not how the NFL goes. You have to have some give and some take. And I would much rather prefer to be elite against the pass and struggle against the run than to be elite against the run but struggle against the pass, because especially in the AFC where you've got pass offenses all over the place, so that's my soapbox a little bit on run v pass. But Norman-Lott is a guy that, like you said, a bit of a reach, but in a position of need. Played at a big time school at Tennessee in the SEC. They were very successful, so he's had good coaching. Not the worst pick, especially with the explosive athletic traits. We'll see how he develops.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. He is a little bit older too, already 23, so a little bit older player there, a fifth-year senior at Tennessee. We're kind of getting through the very end now of, kind of players whose careers were affected by COVID. So an older player, so, that can always cut both ways, right? You would hope that he'd be able to step in and contribute right away. On the other hand, maybe not quite as much room for him to develop physically. But, with the way the money in college football these days, guys are getting a good physical development there in any case. So it'll be interesting to see how he kind of plays out. The Chiefs have dumped a lot of resources into the defensive line, the edge of the defensive tackles over the last couple of years. And that continued in the third round. They actually traded up in the third round, or wait, no,
not yet.
66 overall.
They traded up in the third round, but not at this pick.
Right. So they had the second pick in the third round,
from the
and
Titans. Snead.
from the Titans, exactly right, from the L'Jarius Sneed trade, which worked out great for them. And they took
Yeah,
and they took Ashton Gelati, an edge out of Louisville. KCSN had him as the edge 13, and he was 95th on Arif Hasan's consensus board. So again, I mean, this by the consensus board, it's an even bigger reach than Omar Norman Lott was with the pick before. Uh, Going after an edge rusher certainly makes sense. The Chiefs have taken some swings at edge rusher. George Karlaftis worked out great as a first round pick. FAU did not work out, or at least to this point has not really worked out at all as a late first round pick. And so now here you have top 70 draft capital on an edge rusher. Someone that Dane Brugler had as the edge 15 and as the 78th overall player. So while the consensus board was lower on him, this is pretty close to where Dane Brugler had him ranked and right around where KCSN had him ranked.
Yeah, he was the 10th edge off the board in the draft. So again, 13, 14 is kind of where the boards had him. But, another position of need for the Chiefs. And when you're taking positions of need, you need depth there. Outside of Karlaftis, it's a little dicey on the Chiefs right now at the edge. And they didn't really address it in free agency. Amenahu obviously coming back, but there's still some work to be done at the edge. So I don't mind taking a swing on a guy as athletic as Gelati. You can go into his Raz, but it's fine. It's an okay pick.
I will go into his RAS because this is sort of interesting. His RAS comes out great. It's 9.74, which makes him a 97th percentile athlete at the
Seems good.
edge rusher position. And everything on here is green, which means it's elite or great. The composite explosion grade is great, 92nd percent vertical and 84th percentile broad. His 40 is 92nd percentile. His 20-yard split is insane, 99.7th percentile there.
Jeez.
So 2.54 20-yard split in a 40-yard dash is crazy good. And his 10-yard split is also extremely good, 94th percentile. Composite agility grade, the shuttle and three cone, which are really important for edge rushers, especially that three cone, 96th percentile on the three cone. So, I mean, we're talking about somebody that has really, really strong numbers at 3 of the 4 relative athletic score categories. Now, the one that he's not good at is interesting because it's also what Omar Norman Lott, the second round pick, is not good at, which is size. He's undersized for an edge rusher, 6'2.5", which ranks as in the 33rd percentile for edge. His weight and his bench are a little bit closer to average, a little bit above average, 62nd percentile for his weight and 73rd percentile for his bench, 24 reps. So here's what's interesting about that. Obviously, relative athletic score is looking at historical data that goes back to the 80s.
Yeah.
So you're measuring a player against, edge rushers, that were testing in the combine in the late 80s all the way through today. It is not surprising that if you looked at historical data just for the size of players, that as players have gotten smaller, they've gotten faster. And it would be very easy to make a generalization about the NFL that NFL players on the whole have gotten smaller, but they've also gotten more explosive and faster. And I think, when you look at the fact that she's taken 2 guys that are by RAS, historical data, undersized, it could also just be seen as a reflection of this is where the NFL game has been headed, where it's been headed for a while, and where the Chiefs think it's likely to continue to go. You always have teams that are going to zag instead of zig, and you still have teams in 2025. The Raiders took a running back 6 overall, and Pete Carroll's their head coach. So you may have a team in the division that wants to load up with big offensive linemen and run the hell out of the ball. But the Chiefs are obviously making that gamble that the way you win football games in 2025 is by getting faster and more athletic and not bigger.
Yeah, that's fair. And it would be interesting maybe to do a study on the entire draft class on the RAS, but I would guess that it's harder, like you're saying, it's harder to find a guy with super elite size compared to super elite. Like you're pretty much always going to have guys every draft that are going to be in the 99th plus percentile in agility and speed and explosion because everyone's getting crazy athletic and
Right.
stronger and quicker and all that stuff. But
And that's what's being emphasized. Right.
exactly. And that makes sense. The game's faster, it's more spread out, it's more about, space and stuff like that. Whereas if you've got a guy that comes in with a composite height or size grade of elite, that's one of the biggest DEs or biggest, tackles or whatever, that's huge for an NFL player to
Yeah.
be in the
Right.
99th percentile in size. So, especially like you said, since 84, whenever Raz started. So, yeah, if you're going to have one of the sections in Raz not be elite, I'm okay with it being size as long as the other ones are elite. And Gelati's got the measurables. I'll quickly read KCSN's how he fits. Gelati provides profiles best as an even front defense end that provides quality run defense on early downs and can work in a rotation as a rusher. He has some versatility to reduce inside on passing downs, but also operates exceptionally well as a pocket pusher and complementary power rusher off the edge. Odd front teams may struggle with his fit given the lack of athleticism or length. Gelati lacks the length the Chiefs typically look for in their DEs, but they have taken some exceptions with similar play styles. His overall density and power profile might be enough to make up for the length as they value his run defense effort and power based rushing attack. So, I mean, he's got the athleticism. If the size can work at the NFL level, they'll figure it out.
The effort is a really interesting point, and we'll close with that because, as you may have heard, he has been coached by the same defensive line coach that coached George Karlaftis, who had him at Purdue, Mark Hagan, and then was the defensive line coach and the co-defensive coordinator at Louisville. So he mentioned in his introductory press conference that he has trained quite a bit with Karlaftis, and Karlaftis is obviously is bigger, but if there's one thing that jumps out about Karlaftis and jumped out about Karlaftis when the Chiefs drafted him, it was the effort. And it's interesting that they were coached by the same defensive line coach. It's interesting that the Chiefs went back to the well there and took a player pretty highly in the draft that that has come through the same system that built George Karlaftis, who obviously, as you mentioned at the jump, is one of the big success stories for the Chiefs in the draft over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how Gelati fits in and how he develops here. We have one more pick on the second day of the draft, and that was at number 85. The Chiefs did trade up from 95 and gave up a 2026 fourth round pick to the New England Patriots to get up to number 85 to take Noel Williams, cornerback out of Cal, KCSN's CB9. And this was for the fourth time on the second day of the draft, third time for the second day of the draft, a reach by the consensus board. Arif Hasan's consensus board had him as the 102nd best player. Chiefs take him at 85, a little bit closer to the consensus here with this player. But yet again, this is what people used to call him, Brett Reach. Brett Reach on day 2 of the draft. Dane Brugler did have him as the CB8 and did have him ranked 66th. So by Dane's board, this is actually a pretty significant value, about a 20 pick difference. Sure. But by the consensus board, this is a little bit of a reach.
And he was the 12th cornerback taken in the draft. So, if you're valuing, that's the other thing is sometimes, if a bunch of teams take quarterbacks or whatever, like they're going to push people down the board
which this draft they didn't.
Right, exactly. Or name the position. What I mean is if other unrelated positions to this get taken, then guys can shift around a little bit.
And Brett Veach did say he felt like this is a deep DB draft and.
Yeah, right. And so that's the other thing is you feel like, okay, maybe we can wait around and if the position is going to be there, then anyway. So, yeah, again, KCSN had him as the 9th. His RAS is 71%, so certainly doesn't jump off the page as elite. He kind of has the exact opposite profile of the previous guys that we've talked about, where his composite size grade is great. 81st percentile in height, 86th percentile in weight, 93rd percentile in bench, but the other stuff is just mediocre, okay, good, explosion grade of poor. So, we'll see. The KCSN how he fits. Williams is an ideal fit for the Chiefs defense with his length and strength. He provides the kind of qualities they covet in their outside cornerbacks. They can work with some of his limitations with long speed in their too high heavy coverage schemes. He could develop into a starter early in his career. So KCSN, definitely likes the athletic profile of him. getting an outside corner is obviously important if the plan, which I think it probably is to push McDuffie back into the slot where he
Sure.
obviously is extremely elite and very comfortable and you know, I mean it's not that he can't play outside, but that I think their plan would be solidify outside cornerbacks with other guys and then there's so many elite slot wide receivers in the NFL and
Right.
slot talents that you definitely need an elite slot coverage guy and that's McDuffie. So you know they're trying to bolster the outside corner situation. You know that's and they signed Christian Fulton in the offseason as cornerback out of the Chargers, and so this is good depth at that position as well. I definitely think the fit is good, and even though, and that's the other thing we've been talking about with the boards. You know, one guy has him as a steal, the other guys have him as a reach. And at the end
Right.
of the day, the Chiefs got him at the 85th pick. The only thing I really could say that I don't particularly like is spending a fourth round pick to go up 10 spots in the third.
Yeah.
I don't know if that value there. I can't imagine Noel Williams would not have been around at 95 when the when the Chiefs were picking instead of having to jump up 10 spots to get him. But you know what? That also shows that they saw the opportunity, they believed in the kid. They moved up 10 spots to take him. You know, not the end of the world. They got a free fifth rounder from moving one spot with the Eagles in the first. So, you know, fourth round pick to the Patriots. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it's maybe not ideal value there, but the Chiefs did get a free fifth round pick from the Eagles this year. I mean, literally a free fifth round pick because
Right.
they knew the
Did you
Eagles weren't
see
going to take the guy that they wanted.
Brett asked Howie, just tell me offense or defense? Howie said defense, and he was like, all
Oh,
right, cool. All right, go
cool,
ahead and take
great,
it.
that's funny.
Yeah.
No, that is very funny. I love
Yeah.
that. And yeah, it's interesting because the worst grades on here are his vertical, 37th percentile, and his 10-yard split, which is 39th percentile. Uh, the vertical maybe doesn't matter as much when you consider that he's tall. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a tall guy. So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Maybe he doesn't need to get up and go quite as much. And vertical is obviously also being used in RIS as a proxy for explosion. I mean, it's just showing you how quickly he gets off. And the 10-yard split isn't good either. So the vertical and the 10-yard split, which 10-yard split is, you know, classified as a speed grade.
He can't run, he can't jump.
Can't run, can't jump. Probably not a great corner, but at the same time, he does seem to have, and this is obviously something that RAS doesn't reflect at all, which is his actual ability to cover, like
Yes,
his
of
actual
course.
coverage skills, which
Yes.
have nothing to do with athleticism, and that is something that KCSN, Dane Brugler, everyone has been very complimentary of his instincts and his coverage skills as a cornerback. So even if he's not the most athletic player, it seems like he has the savvy to compensate for that somewhat. And obviously, I mean, the Chiefs do like having bigger corners, with the exception of McDuffie, who, you know, we know when McDuffie was on the board a couple years ago and the Chiefs traded up to get him, that was because they viewed him correctly, as it turns out, as an elite player, regardless of his size.
Mm-hmm.
We know he's not very big, but their general preference has been for bigger corners. So Noel Williams fits with that. It'll be interesting to see how he plays out. I will say, we say this every year, but if there's one
Yes.
position group that the Chiefs deserve the total benefit of the doubt on
Mm-hmm.
drafting, it's DBs, because they essentially have never missed on a DB
Right.
in the Brett Veach era. I mean, they have pretty much, I mean, at worst, like the worst result that they've come up with whenever they drafted a DB in the Veach era has been like hitting a single, right? Like, you
Sure.
know,
You know, like an injury.
or
Najee
sack
Johnson
fly,
gets
right?
hurt,
Like,
and
yeah.
and that's
And he was a
not being
seventh
able
round
to
pick.
identify
He was a
talent.
seventh round
And he
pick.
was a
So, I
seventh round
mean,
pick. Exactly. He'd
I
be
mean,
cut by
like,
most teams.
yeah, you really, they have just done an unbelievable job of drafting and developing DBs.
They
And
have.
Dave Merritt is still in the room for at least a few more
Somehow.
years until his kids are off to college or whatever it is he's waiting for. I think that's what our sources have told us is maybe where he's waiting to go take a coordinator job until he gets his kids through school. But he's still there, and he has an opportunity to develop Noel Williams into a good player. Let's turn to the third day of the draft, and we're going to get back into bargain mode here. Starting off with, I got to say, just
Pick
my
of the
favorite
draft.
pick of the draft.
The pick of the draft. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I love it because at the 31st pick of the fourth round, 133 overall, the Chiefs take a Jalen Royals, wide receiver out of Utah State. KCSN's wide receiver 6.
Yeah.
And on the consensus board, Arif Hasan, 74th. Chiefs are getting him at 133rd. That's a hell of a steal. And the guy's name is Royals, which means I can finally fulfill my dream, which I tweeted out last November, of getting a Chiefs Royals jersey. I mean, there's just nothing better than that.
I'm not sure if you've seen, but that's gotten some good retweet action today.
It has, yeah.
So that's been good. He was wide receiver 18 in this draft, which is, I mean, crazy. And the other crazy thing is a lot of times guys will fall for certain reasons. I don't see the reason that Jalen Royals
Dane
fell.
Brugler had him as the wide receiver 7.
Right.
And the
And he went
63rd
18.
overall player.
ESPN had him wide receiver 9, 62nd overall player. So, yeah, look, there's a lot to like about Jalen Royals. KCSN, Royals is a versatile chess piece that could line up all over the formation in Kansas City and thrive. His ability to play with proper spacing would make him a seamless fit for the Chiefs. So they had him as a high fit. 901 relative athletic score, 90th percentile, and all that is speed related.
Yeah, break it down for me.
Speed has everything to do with it. 10-yard split, 1.53, 90th percentile. 20-yard split, 2.56, 90th percentile. 40-yard dash, 4.42, 917 or 91.7%. He said that the hand times 40-yard that he ran was 4.38 instead of the 4.42 laser time. So, look, I mean, he's fast. He's explosive. He's a guy that is going to be able to do some fun, complementary stuff for the Chiefs. I think a lot of people see him as a contributor right away. There's not going to be a lot of look. I said a lot of positive, interesting things about Sky Moore. Every now and then, the Chiefs, the wide receiver fits have been kind of up or down. It's not that they've always missed, because clearly Worthy and Rice were slam dunk picks.
And you know what? That's 2 drafts in a row that they have nailed their top wide receiver pick.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And this is after them not drafting a good wide receiver from Tyreek Hill to Rashee Rice.
Yeah. Right.
Which was the entire Brett Veach era, because Tyreek Hill was the previous administration, right?
And you're really talking, Hardman and Sky Moore and I guess D-Rob and guys like that. But yeah, so if Jalen Royals is a guy that is fast and you're pairing him with Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice.
And Travis Kelce's still around. So,
Travis Kelce, yeah, he's still a part of this thing. So, it's a lot of fun. Again, though, as you pointed out, having a Royals jersey, a Chiefs Royals jersey. Now, look, the only thing that would make that better is if he goes and picks his number and he picks 85. I'm telling you, there's going to be a billion Royals 85 jerseys if he picks that. Cool. It will be an absolute slam dunk. I reached out to a friend of the show.
Why not 15?
Well, 15. It might be taken. He might have to spend. How much do you think he'd have to spend to buy all the Pat Mahomes jerseys out there? Probably $1 billion.
Literally, he'd have to be the greatest wide receiver in NFL history just to afford it.
Just to afford it, exactly. I reached out to a friend of the show, Matt McMillan, and I told him, look, if you can get a message to, which I know he can, to Jalen Royals, and just tell him, look, you might not understand the gravity of your name and a number and all that stuff, but if you can pick 85, which the Chiefs don't have an 85 on the roster, there's no, all-time grade or anything like that. There's nothing standing in the, first of all, he was 1 in college, and that's taken by Worthy, so he's going to have to pick a new number. Right. Why not 85? Why not get me a Royals 85 Chiefs jersey? I would die. That's the pick of the draft.
I mean, it is the pick of the draft in so many ways. It's just it's really a very, very fun pick for a lot of reasons. It's great value. It's another speedy wide receiver, and his last name is Royals. I mean, Royals, not even Royal.
Yes, I know. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect.
It's incredible.
Let's not also just brush over the fact that picking an offensive skill player is a lot of fun. Every time a wide receiver, a tight end, or a running back gets picked, I just feel like, oh, that's good. That's the piece. That's what they needed to get to the next level. And this guy's gonna be playing. He's gonna be playing. He's a contributor. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Every team gets better in the draft, but addressing, getting essentially like a second round talent wide receiver in the 4th round, and then adding in a guy that could have been a top 10 pick at offensive tackle, and adding it to 2 really young, exciting wide receivers in Rice and Worthy that you've picked in the last couple of drafts, and a veteran that we got to see a little taste of what he looked like in Hollywood Brown. It's like if they just fix the offensive line, like we've done this the last couple of years. It's like this has on paper the potential to be the most explosive Chiefs offense ever. And we'll see how it plays out.
The other thing real quick to talk about is the potential impending Rashee Rice suspension.
Right.
We still don't know anything about it. But point being, without Royals in the fold, if you're talking about, okay, you remove Rice from that wide receiver room and now it's basically just Worthy and Hollywood, doesn't inspire a ton of confidence. Now, if you have Worthy, Hollywood, and Royals while Rice is suspended, and then you can insert Rice back into that lineup at some point, just makes the whole room better. Really, really exciting.
Yeah, great. And I jumped the gun a little bit, but the Chiefs did make a trade. It was not for it was not on the second day, but we had here another trade for the Chiefs. The Chiefs go up to 156. They give up 164 and 226 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they move up to the 20th pick in the 5th round, 156 overall, to take Jeffrey Bassa, linebacker out of Oregon, KCSN's LB5. This was the consensus 125th best player on Arif Hasan's board. And for Dane Brugler, Jeffrey Bassa was linebacker 4 and 99th overall player. So a player that Dane had as a top 100 talent. And here the Chiefs are scooping him up in the middle of the 5th round, towards the end of the 5th round.
A lot of fun. Picked as linebacker 13 in the draft.
It's crazy. Linebacker 4 for Dane and linebacker 5 for KCSN.
That's what I mean. And, sometimes it's not really about the guy when they fall. It's just other teams have other needs and they've got other,
especially at linebacker.
Especially at linebacker, you can always convince yourself that you should go in another direction other than linebacker. But, he played at Oregon, which is a big-time school. That's the other thing is, at least when you pick up guys from college, I like to see that they've had experience with as good of a competition as college football can provide, and the Big Ten is certainly that. And I like Bassa quite a bit. I'll read how he fits. Skill set that shines in coverage, and the Chiefs don't have that kind of ability he does currently on the roster, which, love to hear that. He doesn't play with the kind of physicality that they like against the run, but as a sub-package player, he would have value. Bassett could be a fit for Dave Tobe's special teams with the athleticism and could boost his value to the team. So again, that could have been an Uncle Dave pick here, which is fine. They gotta keep the special teams roster churning, but I like that value.
You mentioned the athleticism. I want to talk about the athleticism here because this RAS is it's really interesting to me.
Yeah.
So at 68th percentile overall, composite size grade is okay. He's around average height, weight, a little bit above average in the bench. Didn't qualify for agility testing. Dane said that he handles run fits and gap exchanges with excellent lateral flow, but then didn't do the shuttle and actually was 37th percentile on the 3-cone, which you don't love that for a linebacker because you want to be able to show some side to side agility.
My headcanon there is he tweaked something in the 3-cone and didn't test the shuttle because of it. That's what happened in my head.
Well, so this is the really interesting part to me is his composite speed grade is good. I don't think I've ever seen this breakdown for speed grade. It's very odd.
Yeah.
So his 40-yard dash was 4.63, which is 83rd percentile. His 20-yard split was 59th percentile, which is yellow. So there's green, yellow, red, which is good, medium, and bad.
Uh-huh.
And his 10-yard split was a 44th percentile. So his 40-yard dash was 80th percentile, and his 10-yard split was 44th percentile.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yes.
And I've been kind of searching around Twitter, and if any of you that are sort of more plugged into the combine and everything like that, we were, deep in the throes of
depression.
We were just not touching anything football related when the combine was going on. I just was really curious about how these numbers came to pass because you think 10-yard split again. That's kind of tied into your get off and your explosion grade, and his explosion grade is great. His vertical is 95th percentile and his broad was 68th percentile. So, this is somebody that had a great composite explosion grade, a really good 40-yard dash overall. So good long speed. And then the 10-yard split is terrible. 44th percentile is just very strange. It's very odd.
What's funny is if it were reversed and if it went green, yellow, red from short to medium to long, I could imagine a guy that got gassed. I could
Sure.
imagine a guy
Right.
that exploded out of the blocks and was really good from 10 yards, and then he got long and it just kind of it wore him out. What's really funny is that he got faster.
Right.
He didn't get out of the block quickly, but he was able to catch up at the 20 and the 40, which doesn't really, I don't know. I like you said, to see the big splits like that between the 10, 20, and 40, I certainly haven't seen it. And I'd be interested in how many guys have that big of a range and range in this direction too. Again,
Right.
to
Right.
see it go from quick early to slow late, I could totally see that. That would be how I would run it. Like you might be able to do something early, but you're definitely not going to have the
Sure.
endurance to go all 40 yards. But to go in reverse and start slow and finish fast, just very strange.
Yeah, it is. It is a little odd, and it's going to be interesting to see, kind of how he develops because it's such an unusual athletic profile. The agility testing is maybe not backing up what people see on film. I mean, Dane specifically is saying that he's really good at kind of getting side to side, and the testing doesn't necessarily show that. So whether that's injury related or just stuff happens, right? Like these are human beings, and we all know people that are good test takers whether it
Yeah.
be
Yes.
athletic testing or off
Otherwise.
field. Yes, exactly right. Good tester here, not athletically, just you give me a multiple choice paper test,
Hmm.
I will ace the shit out of that. You give me an athletic test and I will fail. I would be red in all the splits. You were saying it would be opposite for you, maybe
I
green
wouldn't be
20
green
yards.
anywhere. Don't get me wrong, but I could see myself slowing down much easier than I could see
You
myself
can see it would go
getting
from
faster.
red to deeper red.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah. So the Chiefs made another trade to round out their draft, their final pick in the seventh round. The Chiefs got 228, and they gave the Patriots 251 and 257. So they gave
All
up
the Pats again.
two seventh round picks, and they got a higher seventh round pick, the 12th pick in the seventh round. 228 overall. They take Brashard Smith, running back out of SMU, going back to Rashee Rice's alma mater there, back to the scene of the crime, Dallas, Texas. The RB14
Jeez.
for KCSN, 142nd on Arif Hasan's consensus board. So again, a pretty significant value there from the consensus board standpoint. And for Dane Brugler, the RB18, he was drafted as the RB21. So a little bit of value there as well. What were your thoughts on rounding this draft out with a running back?
Really well, first of all, that is a huge position of need for the Chiefs. They
Yes.
probably have the worst running back room in the NFL, I would imagine. And that's not a slight to Hunt and Pacheco. They're just not that exciting of
Yeah.
players.
Right.
And
Especially
especially
Hunt, another year older. Yeah.
correct. You could tell, or at least I could tell, Kareem was he was gassed.
Yeah.
He was certainly giving everything he had and more last year. And Pacheco has certainly fallen off. Now, whether that injury had something to do with it or not for him, at the end of the day, his production and explosiveness has really fallen off a cliff. So they needed someone. And I wished during this draft that they had gone a little bit higher than the seventh round for a running back.
Sure.
There were some guys, especially a couple Big 12 running backs, whether that was Devin Neal or DJ Giddens or Ollie Gordon, one of those guys that I had seen a lot of college ball that were all really good. They were all picked by this point, but the Chiefs were on the board in some of the rounds and could have taken them. They went in a different direction, which, in Veach we trust. But I definitely like spending a 257th pick, the Mr. Irrelevant, to go up 20 something spots in the seventh. I think that was
Right.
really good value there. And getting a guy that is explosive. His speed grades were all elite. The how he fits got me really excited from KCSN. They said he's one of the most electric players in the draft in the open field, blending speed and elusiveness into one package. That sounds like a superhero. His quickest path to playing time is as a third down back early on in his career, utilizing his wide receiver background. He started out as wide receiver in college before
Right.
switching to running back, so he's got the athleticism for open field stuff. He shows enough dynamic ability to become a change of pace back if he can develop his rushing instincts behind the line of scrimmage. The Chiefs are in the market for a third down back, and it would be a bonus if they had a legitimate dynamic ability like Smith. He may not ever develop into a true three down back for their offense, but the ability for it to be a weapon on passing downs and a home run option as a runner should appeal to them. I really like that. I think that's basically the opposite of what they have in Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco. They do not have home run hitters right now in either of those players. And you can kind of bruise on first and second down with those guys, and then you come in with a McKinnon like, or a Samaje Perine like, a guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield as a former wide receiver and is explosive in the open field. I mean, they needed a third down back. They certainly needed a guy that could stretch the field and stuff like that. So I think this is an awesome pick in the 7th round.
Yeah, it's a really interesting pick too. This is another guy that wore number 1 in college. So we've got Royals and Richard Smith. He's going to have to change his jersey number 2. It's too bad that Smith doesn't really have a nice, fun number like 85 that Royals could
can't pick Neil Smith's
with.
number, I guess.
Really, really an interesting little blurb here from Dane Brugler with The Athletic. After 3 seasons as a pass catcher for Miami, he entered the portal, and head coach Rhett Lasley sold him on making a potential move that would allow him to be SMU's version of Isaiah Pacheco, which is weird. Like, I wonder, like, that seems like a direct quote probably from either Richard Smith or Rhett Lasley, that is the person they specifically said, which is weird because Isaiah Pacheco was at Rutgers, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it's not, I mean, like, and physically they don't, you just mentioned it. Their profiles are not that similar. No. Isaiah Pacheco, also a guy that tested well in the speed category, but much bigger. And
when he was a 3-down back, he was
significantly beefier, right? Exactly,
a workhorse back, which is not this guy.
Richard Smith, I mean, he played that role a little bit. I mean, he was 4th in the country in yards from scrimmage, or all-purpose yards, I should say, and that did include some kick return yardage because they did let him return kicks for obvious reasons. The speed there, but yeah, it just, I thought that was interesting that the SMU coaching staff was like, hey, yeah, come here. You could be Isaiah Pacheco. And like, Pacheco's got like 20 pounds on him. A little bit taller, but I mean, just a thicker guy. But yeah, it's going to be, I really like the idea of, a running back that used to play wide receiver, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think we're going to see that more and more because so many more athletes are coming up through school with the intent of being wide receivers because wide receivers get paid and running backs don't.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see this transition that Richard Smith made more and more. And I think guys will get more effective at it. And really going from wide receiver to running back should be a smoother transition. Obviously you're getting hit a lot more.
Sure.
It should be a much smoother transition than going the other way, right? Like going from running back to wide receiver, there's a lot more that you have to learn than just, where to go and where to cut. And obviously all of the open field skills should translate. So yeah, a really interesting pick to round out the draft. And, while Pacheco has not been great lately, he certainly has been a hit for a 7th round pick. And if the Chiefs, I mean, this was their 7th round pick. I think I'd be shocked if he didn't make the team. I'd be surprised if he didn't get some pretty significant run as a rookie. And, I mean, we'd have to research this, but my instinct would be that, if he gets significant playing time, this would be sort of like a historic run for the Chiefs getting contributions out of 7th round picks, right? Like you just don't get contributing players in the 7th round very often, unless you're Brett Veach and the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's talk very briefly here about the undrafted free agents. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we're recording this on Saturday night. And so the undrafted free agent information is still continuing to trickle in. Is there anyone that is signed already as of the time of recording that has intrigued you?
Well, we have 6 names. And so I'll just quickly say the 6 names and then talk about the one that I'm really interested in. There is a wide receiver from Fresno State, Magdalena. There is a tight end from Clemson, Jake Brinningstool. A defensive back from USC, Jacob Covington. Wide receiver from Florida, Elijah Badger. Love a guy with the last name of Badger. That's great.
Hell yeah.
And offensive lineman from Washington State, Issa Poole. But the guy I want to talk about is a linebacker from Pittsburgh named Brandon George. Brandon George is one of those I mean, closest comp I can think of would be Leo Chanel because his RAS is
Hmm.
998. So
Ooh,
they found a linebacker in the draft, in the undrafted free agency market that tested one of the best relative athletic testing of any linebacker of all time. So hand size, first of all, is 9.75 inches. His arm length is 33, but the size grades are elite. Height is 6'3", weight 246, and bench 28 reps. That is 92nd, 88th, and 95th percentile. His explosion grade is elite. Broad jump 9.75, which is a 10-inch broad jump, but the vertical is the one that is going to have everybody talking. A 42.5-inch vertical, which is the combine record for a linebacker because it is a 10.0 RAS scale on the vertical, which is just delicious. I just love a guy that tests better than anyone at his size and position has ever tested. His speed grade is also great. He has a 88th, 83rd, and 79th percentile in the 10, 20, and 40-yard dashes. And then the shuttle and the three cone also elite 87th and 95th percentile in those. So you add all that up and you get a guy that is in the 99.8th percentile of athleticism for linebackers, which are traditionally some of the freakiest athletes on the field. You
right.
definitely have to be both big and fast to play successful linebacker in the NFL. Really interested in Brandon George, even if it's as a special teamer or whatever. I think if you're going to bet on one of the UDFAs to at least make enough of an impact that people are going to hear his name, I mean, my bet's on the most athletic one among them, which would be really fun.
Yeah, UDFAs obviously are typically going to be making the team as special teamers and
Sure.
then potentially finding a way to contribute in other ways. And when a guy has this kind of relative athletic score and goes undrafted, it tells you a little bit about his tape and
Sure.
maybe his ability to actually play the linebacker position is
Mm.
probably not great. But as you said, there's a wide gulf between the mental and physical skills you need to be able to play linebacker at a high level, the instincts you need to be able to play linebacker in the NFL, and the instincts and training that you need to be able to be a gunner on special teams, right?
Right.
Like one of them is extremely hard. It's probably one of the hardest positions to play in the modern NFL. And the other one is run fast, hit hard, jump on ball if it pops out. Like that's pretty easy.
Yeah.
And I mean, give me a guy that can run fast and hit hard and pop guys, and give Dave Tobe another little weapon there to make it work. We will keep an eye, obviously, on how the rest of the UDFA class plays out, and we'll be back at some point. We don't know when we will be back to a weekly show. But we'll probably pop back in from time to time as we feel comfortable with what's going on in our personal lives and what's going on in our football lives. And we will be back. And it is, or at least at some point will be, sunny again in Chiefs Kingdom.